Hi, this is Grandma Lori. Today's story is Where Did the Grackles Come From? Rojo the cardinal and Jay the blue jay were sitting in the backyard chatting about the upcoming winter. Are you flying south, Rojo? Asked Jay. Nah, it's too far. This is as far south as I go. Besides, I love the food here. Mom puts out a feast almost every day, Rojo replied. You? Are you going further south? Nah, I'm staying for the same reason. Besides, the missus doesn't like all the packing that goes along with moving, Jay said with a smirk. Don't blame this on me, Jay, came a voice from the other end of the branch. It was Mrs. Jay. I'd fly further south in a minute. I would love to work on my tan. Jay said, Oh, come on, you hate the beach. Mrs. Jay raised her wing in frustration. I'm out of here, she said and flew off. Meanwhile, Sneaky Pete was on another branch talking to Mrs. Rojo. They were listening to the other conversation and both laughed when Mrs. Jay flew off. I agree with her. I wouldn't mind being closer to where all the people are when it's winter, said Mrs. Rojo. But they all come here during the winter. The humans even have a name for them, snowbirds. I don't see any feathers on them, but, what's in a name, said Sneaky Pete. Mrs. Rojo looked at him and said, Thanks for the laughs, Pete. I gotta go get things ready for bedtime. Talk to you later. With that, she flew off. Meanwhile, Rojo and Jay were deep in conversation about the other birds flying south. Who do you think we'll see this year? Do you think any of our friends will head down here? Asked Rojo. I'm not sure. I heard Sterling say he was going to Florida this year. There's better food around, in his opinion. Of course, he's never eaten here, was Jay's reply. He didn't look at Rojo, though. Something else caught his eye. It was a large flock of birds. Oh no, it's them, said Jay. Rojo looked up and saw the biggest noisemakers in the bird world, Grackles. They were the most unwelcome guests in the trees. Fortunately, they also loved hanging out in parking lots, so they weren't around Mom's backyard very much. Sid, George, and Angie, who were Grackles, flew together this year. They stopped over at Mom's backyard because they heard other birds talking about the excellent food. I hear there's a 5-star restaurant at Mom's, said Sid. I'm so hungry from the long flight. Let's see what's on the menu. The 3 birds flew down to the grass in the backyard. They started sampling what was on the ground. Angie, try this over here. It's really tasty. I'm good over here. There are nuts here, Angie said with her beak full of nuts. Hey, Grackles, this isn't your place. Move on! You're not allowed here! Yelled Jay. The fruit is free for anyone. It's on the ground and I don't see your name on it, said Sid. Sid flew up into the trees and landed next to Rojo. You want to fight about it? Asked Sid, fluffing himself up to look bigger. Rojo looked at him and thought, what a pipsqueak. He said, No, I'd rather not. Just respect what belongs to others. This is our home. And while we let smaller birds eat here, like the starlings, you Grackles eat too much. Angie, her beak full of another bite of seed, heard the conversation and said, We do not! Seed flew out of her mouth as she was talking. Look, said Rojo, I hear there's a big superstore around the corner. They're always packed with humans, especially at this time of year. Why don't you go over there? There's certainly more food there than there is here, and lots of wires for you to hang out on. Sid thought for a moment. Oh, we haven't heard about that one. George! Angie! There's a superstore! With that, the 3 Grackles flew off. As they arrived at the superstore, they found hundreds of their friends there, hanging out on the wires above the parking lot. They looked down and saw what Rojo was talking about. Tons of food on the ground, just ready to be eaten. Rojo and Jay returned to their conversation. Boy, that was quick thinking, Rojo. I wouldn't have thought of that, said Jay. The pair sat for a moment, then laughed. Silly Grackles, they both said at the same time. Thank you for listening. This has been Grandma Lori. I hope you enjoyed this story.